The short answer, if you're just looking for medical advice from an unqualified stranger on the internet, is the all-natural plant medicine to help with cold sores is St. John's wort oil applied topically. If you'd like to understand why St. John's wort oil works both as a treatment for cold sores and a preventative for avoiding cold sores altogether, then stay tuned. I'll get into a little bit of the science of it, as well as show you how to make your own lip balm with St. John's wort oil that you can use for a cold sore preventative. Cold sores are caused by this gnarly little virus, HSV1, the herpes simplex virus 1. It's oral herpes, which is related to but not the same as genital herpes, and having one doesn't give you the other. In either case, you have the virus for life. In the case of HSV1, that's because the virus lives dormant in the trigeminal nerve of your face, and it will emerge as a sore when something lowers your immune system. For example, if you're sick, or if you're highly stressed, or if there's some sort of environmental stressor like harsh chemicals, then the virus gets the chance to duplicate and come out in the form of a sore. Most adults in the US have HSV1, but a lot of people just don't ever actually get cold sores, but they will test positive for the virus. The CDC estimates that over 50% of people over 30 years old in the US have HSV1. The first time I ever got a cold sore was in college. I went to a doctor and he told me that I had a staph infection. He gave me some antibiotics and sent me on my way. It wasn't until I broke out with cold sores a few more times that I saw a different doctor who actually tested the sore and positively diagnosed it as HSV1. The result, however, was pretty much the same. The doctor sent me home with some antiviral medication, but didn't actually tell me anything about the virus, how it works, what causes cold sores, or what I could do to prevent them. The medication that a doctor will give you can come in the form of a pill or an ointment. You might get both, but in either case, you are meant to take the medication after you've begun to break out. The goal being to reduce the length or the duration of the breakout, not to actually prevent it from happening in the first place. But a few years ago, when I was just getting these cold sores all the time, I realized that I'm smart enough to look into the issue for myself. I may not be trained in the sciences or medicine, but I am smart enough to read, and I can comprehend medical journals, and I can evaluate for myself statistics. So that's what I started to do. I was tired of just sitting idly by, hoping that someone else would tell me what to do about my own problem. The reality is, in this world, we have to advocate for ourselves, and sometimes that means learning about things that are a bit out of our depth. I didn't have to become a doctor in order to learn the basics of this very particular issue and evaluate for myself what could be done about it. The first things I learned are what I told you up top, that the virus actually lives dormant in your body and it emerges in the form of cold sore when there's some sort of stress factor. One of the most common stress factors that causes cold sores to erupt is actually UV radiation, which is found abundantly in sunlight. With that knowledge, I started to wear a lip balm with SPF, with sunscreen, to hopefully reduce the amount of UV radiation that I was exposing to my lips where I was getting the sores. And this was actually really effective. I got probably half as many cold sores as I was previously. And that was a huge relief, but I was still getting cold sores pretty much every month. So I needed to figure out something else that would be more effective at preventing these. Why no doctor ever suggested I wear sunscreen in my lip balm, I have no idea. It's a proven effective way to reduce the number of cold sores, but the reality is doctors are busy and they're not really in the business of educating people. They give you medicine that's supposed to help treat the problem after it's occurred, but not actually give you the information you need to prevent it from occurring in the first place. After that development, I met someone who gifted me a lip balm. that was made with St. John's wort oil and beeswax. St. John's wort is a plant with little yellow flowers, and this woman claimed that if you take the flowers and the tops of the stems and leaves from St. John's wort and you put it in a container with olive oil and let it sit for about 6 weeks, then a medicine is created. And the medicine that is created by soaking St. John's wort in olive oil is antiviral and a sunscreen. Now, I was skeptical, to say the least. The idea that a flower could be both an antiviral and a sunscreen, the perfect preventative and treatment for cold sores, seemed kind of too good to be true. And it seemed like one of those claims that people will make without really having the evidence to support it. There's this really frustrating trend in our society, this hardline division between medicine, the modern Western medical establishment, with its billions and billions of dollars in research and pharmaceuticals and surgical interventions, and on the other hand, these deliriously superstitious crackpots who espouse various magical panacea from essential oils to salt lamps and crystals. In reality, folk medicine, traditional medicine, absolutely has scientific grounds to be taken seriously, and so does Western medicine. But it's become a kind of political issue, a tribalism, where if a person believes that plant medicine is real, then they should also believe in chakras and the cleansing power of crystals. But if you think that crystals are just pretty rocks, then you couldn't possibly believe that a flower will kill a virus. And of course, there's not much incentive for the medical establishment to conduct research into folk medicine, into traditional remedies, because these are, by definition, remedies that people can self-administer. There's no money in it for the pharmaceutical companies. The pharmaceutical companies just aren't motivated to prove to you that there's this little yellow flower growing in the sun that will kill a virus better than its latest prescription drug that costs hundreds of dollars to fill. As a result, you get skewed data. On the one hand, you have these companies that are motivated by profits as much as health. And so they'll do whatever it takes to get their latest drug that they've sunk millions or billions of dollars into FDA approved. And then they will do their best to market it to people and doctors in such a way that they're convinced to spend their money on this drug. A perfect example of this is the cancer drug Opdivo, which was marketed and advertised as reducing the risk of dying by 41% compared to chemotherapy. What the advertisements didn't state was that the drug actually only helped patients to live up to 3 months longer. And during those 3 months that people were alive, they had terrible side effects. When someone tells you that your chances of living increase, you don't think of it increasing by only 3 months. On the other side, you get almost no hard data whatsoever on the efficacy of traditional medicine. This is so frustrating to someone like me who is very anti-establishment and very interested in the natural world, but I still want good objective data and logical argumentation to support claims. I mean, I want to know with some amount of certainty whether or not this thing I'm about to ingest will help me or hurt me, or whether it's just going to be a waste of my time and money and effort. I don't want to buy snake oil. I don't want to buy it from a naturopath, and I don't want to buy it from a pharmacy. But I actually found plenty of medical studies showing the effectiveness of St. John's wort as an antiviral. It's one of the few plants that is actually well researched. It's also been studied for its effect as an antidepressant when it is taken internally. However, when it's taken internally, it can actually make you more sensitive to sunlight, and it can be contraindicative with other drugs. So you don't just want to go around taking it. If you're depressed, you really need to look into the specifics of it. As an antiviral applied topically, it is actually more effective when it is exposed to UV light or sunlight. So although I didn't find any evidence that it works as a protective sunscreen, St. John's wort oil does work better in conjunction with the sun, which is kind of fascinating. After I had browsed through some of these medical journals and studies, I was convinced enough to at least give the stuff a try. And in the last year, since I've been using St. John's wort oil as a lip balm every day, I've had one cold sore, which is an improvement of like 600% or something over sunscreen alone, which was already a huge improvement over the standard antiviral pills and ointment that I got from the doctor. After I had used the entire tube of lip balm, I bought St. John's wort oil and beeswax and started making it myself. And then this year, around the summer solstice, I decided to go out and pick some St. John's wort myself to infuse my own oil. St. John's wort grows around here and it blooms around the summer solstice, which is when you need to pick it in order to harvest its medicinal compounds. And I found a huge swath of it on the side of the road, growing between a creek and a field. I walked around and picked flowers among the buzzing bees and thought to myself, if this isn't nice, I don't know what is. The Latin name for St. John's wort is Hypericum perforatum. Hypericum because it contains Hypericin and Hyperforin, which are the compounds responsible for most of the plant's various medicinal properties. They are also responsible for this reddish purple color you get from crushing the flowers. Perforatum because the leaves appear to have little pinpricks in them when you hold them up to the light, like they're perforated. Hyperforin appears to be responsible for the reported antidepressant qualities of the plant, while Hypericin is the antiviral. Studies show that it is effective at preventing and treating a lot of viral and retroviral diseases, including cold sores. In fact, it's more effective than acyclovir, a prescription drug that is sold as cold sore medicine in pills and ointments. According to that medical journal article, treatment of herpes simplex with St. John's wort makes use of the ability of hypericins to inhibit protein kinase C and thus suppress viral replication, especially when combined with UV or visible light. Do with that what you will. I collected the flowering tops, that's the flowers and the top of the stems and leaves, from a bunch of plants, being sure not to take too many from any one plant or area. I filled a mason jar, covered the plant material completely in olive oil, using a stone to keep the flowers down and below the surface of the oil, because any exposed plant material is likely to rot and grow bacteria or fungi. Over the weeks, the oil grew darker and darker until it reached this beautiful reddish purple color that you see here. Hypericin is responsible for this color, and Hypericin is the medicinal compound that I'm after as a cold sore preventative and treatment. Conventional advice has it that you should let something like this soak for about 6 weeks before removing the oil from the jar with the plant material. I've been letting this sit for about 4 months now just because I haven't needed it and I haven't gotten around to harvesting it. But I'm about to do that now, and then I'm going to show you how to use St. John's wort oil to make your own lip balm. It's super easy and yet oddly rewarding and satisfying. All I'm going to do is pour off the oil through some cheesecloth to keep out the plant material, and then I'll squeeze it to get all of the oil out. I've really enjoyed having this stuff on my desk. I'm kind of sad to be harvesting it, to be done with it. So that's about a cup, 8 ounces, I don't know, 250 milliliters. Not bad, should last me for a long time. And now I will store it in these. Here's how you make St. John's wort lip balm. Procure St. John's wort oil and beeswax. Heat water in a pot. Place St. John's wort oil and beeswax into a glass container using a 3-to-1 ratio of oil to beeswax. That's 3 times the amount of oil as beeswax. Add the glass container with oil and wax to the heated pot of water. This makes a baña maria, or a double boiler, which will heat up the glass evenly and gently, as opposed to direct heat, which will burn it. A 3-to-1 ratio will produce a good consistency that won't melt in your pocket, but is easy to apply to your lips. Place some sort of metal utensil in the freezer. Dip the cold metal into your liquid so that it cools immediately. You can then check the consistency to see if it is too hard or if it will melt too easily. After the beeswax has melted inside of the oil, simply pour the melted liquid into a lip balm tube. You can use an old one that has run out, or you can buy empty ones. Keep the glass container of already mixed balm, and when you run out in your tube, just heat it up again in the same way and refill the tube. You can add essential oils or other things for scent or whatever, but I like it pure like this. I use it every day and I apply it anytime I'm in the sunlight. Now it's time for all of the usual disclaimers, plus a few more thrown in for good measure. First, I'm not a doctor. I'm just an intelligent, liberally educated human with enough curiosity and time to try to solve his own problems. No generalized medical advice from me or anyone else can be assumed true for you, an individual. Something that is generally safe or effective may, for an individual, be unsafe or harmful or ineffective. I have no idea about you or your particular case. Also, I don't recommend going out and trying to pick your own medicinal plants. I did this because I knew there was a lot of wild St. John's wort oil and I was really curious about the process of making plant medicine. But I don't think I'll do it again in the future. It's just not a sustainable practice, and I would rather support businesses that are already doing a sustainable and environmentally friendly job of harvesting plants for medicine. I would encourage you to do the same. Foraging isn't always the most environmentally friendly option. That's how humans have gotten into such a rough place as it is. People finding huge expanses of wild natural resources and just destroying them for their own gain. So things need to be controlled, and if you can find a company that is proven sustainable, you should support them instead of trying to do it yourself. And beyond just the environmental concerns, there's the health concerns. If you can't positively identify plants, then you shouldn't be ingesting them at all. Growing right alongside all of this St. John's wort was a bunch of poison hemlock, which is lethal in very small doses. If you don't know what you're doing, you can seriously hurt yourself. Finally, the goal of this video is not to give specific medical advice. It's just to encourage you to trust your own ability to do research into solving your own problems. No one is going to care about your problems as much as you. And so you might get bad or incomplete advice from strangers because they just don't have as much invested in solving your problems as you do. I hope to encourage people to be a little bit more thoughtful, a little bit more resourceful, and to learn how to take matters into your own hands instead of relying on institutions to solve things for you. Hopefully, this video will be a jumping off point for you to become more curious and more involved in solving your own problems and to figure out what kind of steps you want to take in your own health journey. You might consider researching St. John's wort if you suffer from any sort of viral or retroviral infections, as well as if you suffer from depression. I can't actually comment on its effectiveness in that area, but you can certainly come to your own conclusions through your own research. You might also be motivated to consult a traditional or folk medical practitioner, an herbalist, or something like that. But make sure you do research into any recommendations they have, just like you should do research into any professional medical doctor recommendations. Whatever you do, don't just quit taking medicine and replace it with St. John's wort, and don't just go around ingesting plants that somebody on the internet told you will help you. You've got to look into it for yourself and make your own decisions. If you take one thing away from this, it's educate yourself and help yourself. Thanks for watching. I almost forgot. If you get cold sores, then you know you can feel it actually coming on. Before the sore appears, you feel the tingling and the sensation in your lip. When you feel that, rather than applying a bunch of St. John's wort, get some of these. They're basically little patches that you put on top of the spot where your cold sore emerges. And if you do it before it actually emerges, when you start having that feeling, then something about sealing off that part of your skin prevents it from emerging. And it won't come out, and it won't create that sore that is an open wound that is so painful and unsightly. I like flowers.